So Mr. Popo is massively unknown, and I'm not saying unknown like people don't know who he is, but more like he's an unknown character. We don't really know what he's made of, what he can do, how much power he has. Now, there has been some things, tidbits from time and time again, maybe non-canon filler stuff that we see, but frankly, we don't really see that much from him in general. But we do know that he must be some sort of great martial artist and a great teacher who has taught, well, Goku and many others, and that includes the Z Fighters. He also works with Kami, aka God or the Guardian of Earth, so he must be of some importance. But this isn't about necessarily the unknown version of this character that, frankly, when I watched him as a kid, it would give me nightmares. This is about the version of him that made me realize that Mr. Popo could be and should be an absolute freaking GOAT. And that is the Team 4-star version that took over my childhood like a freaking raging storm, making me remember DBZ things that are from Team 4-star more than the actual version of Dragon Ball. I'm sure I'm not the only one that from time to time a memory would pop up about Dragon Ball, and it would be the Team 4-star version of Dragon Ball, not the actual version of Dragon Ball Z. Now, obviously, I do remember stuff from actual Dragon Ball Z, but I love the Team 4-star version, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, but more specifically, why Team 4-star's Mr. Popo should actually be canon. I know it sounds wild, but I genuinely think that this version of him should be canon, and I wish he was canon because this truly is the almighty Mr. Popo. Now let's start with the first couple episodes of the Dragon Ball Z Abridged, episode 3, 4, and also 6. We see Mr. Popo. Mr. Popo trains the Z Fighters that include Krillin, Tien, Yamcha, Yajirobe, and Chaozu. Now, he trains all of these people, and Kami basically tells him to do so, and he laughs at them and laughs at the situation. Extremely scary, like extremely scary. We're talking terrifying laughter, and this is just the start of what this guy is, because when he talks to them, he basically tells them that there's a pecking order. One of the most famous lines that Team 4-star will ever have in existence is Popo's pecking order. He tells them it goes like this.
It goes you, the dirt, the worms inside of the dirt, Popo's stool, call me, then Popo.
That is the pecking order, and do not forget it. And then he would ask, well, any questions? And, well, we all know that's a trap. When anybody asks, hey, is there any questions? You definitely shut up, keep your mouth shut, zip it forever, because there are no questions allowed. Because once Krillin decides, hey, I'm going to ask a question, he would get smacked off of Kami's lookout in a matter of a split second, coming barreling down to the ground and smacking on the planet once again. And, well, let's just say it's a beautiful thing when Mr. Popo decides to say, enjoy the climb back up. B word that I won't say because I really would actually not want to get demonetized on this video. But yeah, it's absolutely hilarious when Mr. Popo tells him while he's just plummeting down to the earth to enjoy the climb back up. Now, this does lead to Mr. Popo sending him to a different dimension to fight Saiyans, and even Kami asks him where they went. And all he says is, and the only thing he knows is that they're not safe. What do you mean they're not safe? Like, that's it. That's all he says. He goes, oh, it doesn't matter. All I know is that they're not safe. And that's what makes him happy. That's what makes him like smiley about, is the fact that these people, and I quote, and I want to say this very lightly, like the bugs, the maggots that they are, they are not safe, because that's also what Mr. Popo references them as maggots, which is absolutely hilarious on top of it. Then after all of that, Kami asks if Popo has any final words after, the Z Fighters come out, right? They finally make it. They went through training, hard training, and they're about to take on the Saiyans. And Popo gives them final words, maybe of advice, maybe of inspiration, maybe of confidence, maybe a vote of confidence from the teacher that you've been learning from. But you know what he says? He says, you are all going to die. Yeah, that's what Mr. Popo says. You are all going to die. It's a fantastic thing. It's a great thing. And frankly, it definitely makes you question what kind of power this guy has, because he just knows everything that's going to happen before it happens. And frankly, he knows that this training, it was never going to be good enough in the first place. And then a question comes up. But we all know the pecking order, and Popo boots them all out the lookout instantly. Now, I will say, this was a very funny stint of Mr. Popo. But we even get a little bit more of Mr. Popo later when Piccolo actually dies to Nappa. We all know what happens in the normal version of Dragon Ball, or the version of Dragon Ball Z. Kami ends up dying alongside Piccolo, obviously, and Mr. Popo doesn't care at all. He basically is just like, yeah, goodbye, later. Because after the Saiyans obviously end Piccolo and then obviously Kami, he tells Mr. Popo to go to Namek, get the Dragon Balls, and you can revive everybody that was killed. And he goes, nah, I don't really feel like it. And he hits him with the pecking order, which is hilarious to think, because he did say that he is over Kami in the pecking order. So I guess this would make sense. But what's even more insane is the fact that Kami is like okay with it. I don't know if Kami's high or Kami has something messed up in his brain, but he straight up is like, you know what? I kind of expected that. And it's kind of proof that Mr. Popo is above him in the pecking order. It's as if he's like, please, Mr. Popo, help us and get the Dragon Balls. And Mr. Popo's like, nah, I don't really feel like it. And Kami's like, okay, fair enough. I'm just going to die now. And he's gone, just like that. Now, Mr. Popo does end up helping them. He does end up helping them get to Namek. But he shows up first on his magical carpet. And he shows Bulma basically Kami's ship. But there's a lot of funny things within this. First of all, they are obviously terrified to hop on this carpet with Mr. Popo. They are absolutely terrified, and eventually just are like, yeah, Bulma, you're doing it. Good luck. Have fun. Don't get hurt. Blah, blah, blah. And they just shove her away. But the funny part is when he zooms off, he's basically there at the ship instantaneously. And he goes on to be like, oh, yeah, it's 100,000 miles to the soul or something like that. And he goes, oh, I mean to the gallon. Yeah, the gallon. That's what I meant. And Mr. Popo would eventually show basically Kami's ship, the ship that that in the past has brought him here. And the way he actually opens, closes, and uses the ship is the funniest thing you'll ever see. The fact that Mr. Popo literally walks up and goes, Popo, and it opens. They walk in, he goes, Popo, and it closes. And he goes, Popo, and it just jets off to Jupiter is hilarious. And of course, Bulma's like, oh, it must be voice activated. And Popo's like, yeah, no, it just knows better. What do you mean it knows better? How terrified and how terrifying can you be for a literal ship to obey you by the name that you speak? That is absolutely ridiculous. Now, of course, Bulma does say like, oh, it's perfect. You know, Mr. Popo, like we can go to Namek in no time and blah, blah, blah. And then Popo would go, Popo, and it would send him right back down to Earth. And of course, Bulma's like, oh yeah, Mr. Popo can be our pilot or our driver, or, you know, basically the person that's going to use the ship. And Popo's like, I'm not doing that, right? I mean, if I was going to do that, right, then why would I need you guys? I would just do it myself. So I was just showing you where the ship was. Now figure it out on your own. And we all know that's what Lord Popo does. So, hey man, I thought that was hilarious. And this version of Popo not only has comedic to it and is like this comedic like feeling to it, but on top of it, we know he's powerful. And it's funny knowing that you have someone as strong as him refusing to actually help. And you even see his power later on even more, because Popo, after the whole Frieza saga and we gotta wish back all of, the people Frieza actually killed. Well, what do? Well, Mr. Popo summons Shenron, and, well, Shenron immediately calls him master. Like, oh yes, master, blah blah blah. Like, is it time to be rid of all these useless humans? And Popo's like, let's give them a couple hundred more years and see if they can get their act together. And Popo is hilarious in this because Shenron obviously obeys him to his whip and call. Like, he is terrified of Popo, but also loyal to Popo. So it's obvious that Popo has some sort of pecking order hierarchy that is above Kami. I mean, Kami literally made this guy, and he's treating Popo like, yeah, this is my lord, this is my master. So it's absolutely hilarious. But we don't really see a ton of Popo's power other than just like smacking people away off of Kami's lookout. But when we do see it, we see it with Garlic Jr. Yeah, Garlic Jr. Garlic Jr. is not my favorite villain in the world, but he basically just eats Garlic Jr. He eats him. He's like, Garlic Jr. comes with his henchmen. They mess up the lookout, and Popo's like, who the hell are you guys? Like, what are you doing? And Garlic Jr. says all this BS and that he's gonna take down Kami or something like that. And Popo just goes, like, this is over. Like, we're done with this. And he absorbs Garlic Jr. and like covers him in this like black water tar like substance. And to my understanding, he straight up eats him. I honestly think he ate him. Now, he probably like absorbed him or something, but in my eyes, he ate him. He straight up ate him, because he even says later on when Kami's like, what happened here? And well, Popo's like, well, sorry, I ate Italian for dinner. And Kami's like, what are you even talking about? How does it have anything to do with anything? And in response to that, he basically says that it was nothing but garlic. And as dumb of a kind of punchline that was, it is very funny coming from Mr. Popo, and very funny when you put it all into perspective on what he's capable of and what he can do. And the list really goes on and on. Obviously, we have a limited number of Team 4-Star episodes, but we see Popo basically have the power to throw Goku, throw Vegeta off the lookout. But my favorite stuff has to be Popo and the one and only Big Green, which I know a lot of people they'd be calling him Little Green, but he's Big Green, right? And they got a pretty special bond to the point where they're pretty funny together. And even the first instance, basically Little Green or Dende or Big Green, which Shenron would end up calling Little Green, Big Green, which is always amazing to see. But that relationship was born from basically Dende not giving an F. And Popo immediately is like, I like this one. And it's kind of scary because he smiles, but when he smiles, it like starts cracking. Like he's like forcibly moving bones in his mouth to smile. And it's kind of a scary freaking thing. And of course, we even have later on, which is, I believe, in like YouTube shorts and stuff like that, they ended up doing. And it basically is Videl and Popo and also Dende. And Videl's like, what the heck is that thing? Like, isn't he offensive or something like that? And Popo basically says like, oh, I like her. In which Dende's like, wow, you're gonna steal another one of my men? Like, you're gonna steal another one? Like, you are like, and Dende has this whole shtick of more or less calling Videl or saying that Videl is a man stealing, which I won't say the rest because it is pretty wild, but it is part of the story to a certain extent. And I find it hilarious seeing kind of perfect interactions with this version of Mr. Popo, right? This version of Mr. Popo is offensive. He's overpowered, frankly, a horrible person, and just downright scary. And I absolutely love it. I think it's fantastic having an OP character who refuses to help out in a crisis, has deep-rooted secrets that makes him even more of a dormant, scary threat in like something that I can say is truly a beautiful masterpiece made by Team 4-Star. And frankly, I love Mr. Popo. Mr. Popo, this version of Team 4-Star's Mr. Popo This Mr. Popo is my Mr. Popo. And I mean, count in the comments how many times I said Mr. Popo. But at the end of the day, this is the homie we all need. Mr. Popo needs to be canon. Or Team 4-star Mr. Popo needs to be canon. And frankly, I think we can all just enjoy the good, the amazing, and frankly, the guy that Vegeta calls.
Isn't that weird, Black Man?
Yeah, almost as weird as what's gonna happen if you call me that again.
And frankly, it might be hilarious, but just remember, I didn't say it. Vegeta said it. And what's that? Wait, what is that? Wait, what's that noise? Wait, what? No, wait, I'm sorry.
Bye.